Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Gideon. Thank you for joining me today. And for this video, I thought I would talk about 4 fragrances which have had a moment in my fragrance journey. To discover great fragrances. I thought I'd do something a bit different today because as we all know, scent is very, very nostalgic and brings back so many memories when we smell certain fragrances. It can instantly take us back to certain moments in our life, certain situations, remind us of people, and that's what I love about scent. So I'm going to kick it off by talking about the first fragrance, and this kind of reminds me of my younger years so much. It is Hermes, and it is this fragrance, and let me pronounce it in my best French accent, okay? It is Heure d'Orange Verte, which I believe translates to green orange. Now, the story behind this fragrance is when I was probably about maybe about 13 or 14, my dad used to travel a lot with work, and he used to buy fragrances in duty free when he'd come and visit us, and he actually would always buy us all fragrances. So my dad would always make sure I had nice fragrances, and anyway, he bought this fragrance for himself and he was wearing it, and I remember smelling it and being like, Dad, I really like that fragrance, what is it? And he was like, oh, this fragrance. He's like, do you want it? You can have it. And I remember just wearing it and taking so much pride and really enjoying it. And I was wearing it to school, like about at the age of 13 or 14. I thought I was so posh and sophisticated with my Hermes fragrance, as I probably called it back then. I remember people in my class, the other kids were like, oh, what fragrance is that? When I'd get it out in class and and spray myself, and they were like, oh, what fragrance is that? And I was like, it's Hermes. It was so funny because I think we were all starting to discover fragrance and things like that. Maybe not so much. I was always into fragrance from very young, but this fragrance, anytime I smell it, really takes me back to that time. And actually, it really reminds me of my dad. And essentially, my dad introduced me to Hermes. And yeah, this was one of the first Hermes fragrances that I ever smelt. And it just reminds me of my younger years and has so many nice memories. How would I describe this fragrance? So it's very fresh, green, slightly minty. I do know that there's some lemon, mandarin, some mint at the top, and then in the middle you've got some papaya and mango, and then at the base you've got patchouli and oak moss. So when it dries down, what you're left with, I sprayed some not too long ago, is this kind of dry but slightly earthy green fresh scent. It's a very light fragrance, so the concentration of this is eau de cologne, so this is very light. The longevity is not great at all, which is why I was probably always spraying it every time when I was in school. But it's a great fragrance, it's a classic, very sophisticated actually. Whenever I smell it, I feel this is quite a sophisticated fragrance, but very good one as well. Very good fragrance, and probably one that you can wear all year round. I think actually I would more say this would be a spring summer fragrance for me, more of a summer fragrance. Don't wear it anymore, but I like having, even though there's like that much left, you can see there's a tiny bit left. It's nice to have in my collection just because every so often I smell it and it just brings back all these lovely memories of my earliest memories of discovering fragrance and Hermes. So yeah, that's Eau d'Orange Verte from Hermes. The next fragrance I have to talk about comes from the house of Moschino, and it is Umo. Umo for me was one of the fragrances that I used to wear religiously for about 4 years when I was about 17, 18. And this was a fragrance that I used to smell all the time. And I remember thinking, what is that fragrance? What is that fragrance? I used to smell it on so many guys. And I couldn't have been more than 17, possibly 18. But I remember smelling it all the time. And then one day, my brother's friend came to our house and he was wearing Umo. And I remember saying to him, what is your fragrance? Because everywhere he went, he was leaving a massive scent trail. Literally in every room he went into, I could smell it once he had left. And he said to me, oh, it's this fragrance. So I had to go out and buy it. I had a little part-time job, so I bought this fragrance and I felt so proud to wear it. I felt like I was, you know, some sort of superstar. I used to wear it clubbing, I used to wear it to go to college, I used to wear it to meet my friends. I used to wear it religiously, and it is a very bright, uplifting fragrance. There's some coriander in here, there's some sage, some cedar, some cinnamon, some rosewood, and some amber. God, it's so good. This old formula, and this formula actually lasts a very, very long time. So the next fragrance I want to talk about comes from the house of Armani, and it is Rose d'Arabie. Now, this was such a beautiful fragrance discovery for me. This is a lovely story of how I discovered this fragrance. So essentially I was, at the time I was working in a job I absolutely hated. And one day after work I said, I'm gonna go and cheer myself up. So I'm gonna go and sample some fragrances, go to the Westfield here in London, go to White City, which was one of the things I enjoyed doing, sampling fragrances, and I'd have something to eat, relax and chill sometimes after work. I was there, I walked in, I thought, okay, I'm gonna sample different fragrances, and this fragrance, well, this line of fragrances, which is the Armani Privé line, were all lined up. And it was the first time I'd come into contact with any Armani Privé fragrances. I didn't even know what the Privé line was. So I was like, oh, Armani Privé. So I started smelling all the different fragrances and I smelled this one. And instantly, I was just in love. It was the most stunning fragrance that I had smelled in a very, very long time. And instantly, it completely changed my mood. I remember thinking, wow. The rose in this is so smooth and elegant. It's a damask rose. So I feel like rose is the main player, hence the name Rose d'Arabie. It's got this Middle Eastern, spicy, slightly smoky quality, but there's a beautiful sweetness to this fragrance as well. There's saffron at the top, then you've got some damask rose, some woods, patchouli, and then you've got amber at the base. So you have such a nice balance of, for me, just the right amount of sweetness, a bit of a smokiness, the most beautiful rose. The damask rose in this is gorgeous. This was an amazing discovery, and I just remember thinking to myself, I need to own this fragrance. Stunning bottle, the beautiful gold pebbled lid. And for me, this is a fragrance which, because I was in a bit of with work, this has so many happy memories because it was the fragrance I wore which instantly just transformed my mood. And I then went on to buy it, and I still enjoy wearing it. Probably don't wear it as much, but I definitely need to get this one out again and really start using it again. Armani Privé Rose d'Arabie. The fourth and final fragrance is from the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian, and it is Oud Satin Mood. Now this had to make my list because it was the first Maison Francis Kurkdjian fragrance that I discovered, and it was the one which got me into this beautiful brand. Maison Francis Kurkdjian amongst niche lovers is such a respected niche brand, and Francis Kurdijon himself is an amazing perfumer. Like, the guy has created some of the most iconic fragrances there are. Like, you can just look up his repertoire, it's incredible. And I remember with this, I would go into House of Fraser, which was my little spot, and I would go into a corner of House of Fraser, which was where they had all the ouds, the niche fragrances, all the kind of more higher end fragrances. And I'd go to that corner because no one really appreciated those fragrances. People more went to House of Fraser for the more mainstream. They since have pulled all these types of, well, they still have the Armani Privé line at the Westfield in White City, but they don't no longer carry these. They now carry these in the John Lewis. But what I loved about it was you could go to that corner undisturbed, get into all the rich, expensive, niche fragrances, and just really take your time and smell them. No one would bother you because no one would ever come to that store. No sales staff, no customers, nothing. And I remember smelling this and thinking, wow, this is beautiful. It's a beautiful rose oud fragrance. So there's predominantly lots of Turkish and Bulgarian rose in this. There's oud, there's amber, and there's vanilla. This is a very potent fragrance. So I would always go in that corner, spray a bit on the card, spray a bit on my skin, and then I'd walk around and really enjoy the scent, and it would just be like, woof, just wafting and wafting. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to buy this fragrance, but I eventually bought it from Harrods. I eventually just bought it one weekend. I thought I'm just going to treat myself to it. But this introduced me to Francis Kurdijon, the Maison, this particular fragrance house. And it was such a great discovery because from that I now have discovered so many other of their scents. And if I personally was to only buy from one niche brand, without a doubt it would be this house, which is Maison Francis Kurdijon. And because this was my first fragrance from the brand, it has a really special place in my heart. This, as I said, is a very potent fragrance, so I only get this out in the cold winter months because it is so strong, and it's very sweet. It's a very sweet oud, to the point where I have to be in the mood for this because otherwise it can be quite cloying and give me a headache. But I feel where this really shines is when you do your one spray, because you don't really need to do one spray. You do your one spray of this fragrance. As it dries down and it develops, the smell that then lingers in the dry down for me is when I really love this fragrance. And it's a good one. Oud Satin Mood from Maison Francis Kurdijon. Okay, well those are the fragrance choices. I hope you enjoyed my video. Yeah, I like making these types of videos because the stories behind them are really nice. Memories behind different fragrances, because scent is very emotive. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.